Hello, BookTube. I'm here to talk about my wrap up of reading for June. I'm a bit late, but here is the stack of books that I had read in June. I can't even get it. I don't think all into the frame here. And sorry, that's not even all of them either. Um, but I will go through them here in a moment. Let me just put that one aside. And I read two Simak books as I'm continuing reading throughout the year, at least one Simak book a month, but this month there was two. The slated one was The Choice of Gods. Interesting cover, but not really related to the book itself. And it's set in the near future. All of a sudden, people sort of almost wake up overnight. Most of the population of the earth has disappeared, other than 60 people at a party in a house in southwest Wisconsin, and a group of native Indians that were nearby, as well as a very small itinerant working group in California. And they find out that they don't know what happened to, or at least for most part of the book, they don't know what happened to the rest of the humans, but they find that they are almost immortal. They live for thousands of years, and they start developing other powers, telepathy, um, and teleportation. And then a lot of them do go out exploring into the galaxy. And at the same time, there are robots. There are wild robots. There's robots that have clung to the what humans were left. There's also a group of robots that have been building a supercomputer slash super robot that is communicating with something in the center of the galaxy. Also, a small group of robots that have taken up religion. They've ensconced themselves in a local abbey, and they are going to try to solve and continue the work of religion and sort of search for God. And this all sort of comes to a head. The humans that left, and over a course of thousands of years, 10,000 years approximately, the humans that left, some of them return, and there's disagreement and some conflict, and there's lots of talk about the human sort of need or crutch that technology is on human society and evolution, and how it can be done. It's better maybe without it. But yeah, I will be doing a live with this probably in a couple weeks with again Scott Danielson. Just keep appraised, and there will be a notice for it at some point. And also too, I had read one of my. I think it's one. It's going to become one of my favorites of Clifford Simak, The Goblin Reservation. Again, set for the most part in southwest Wisconsin. It's a far flung future where humans are traveling throughout the galaxy with other aliens, and they don't travel by spaceship, more or less. They are sort of teleported in a form that's not really mentioned in here. That's not the crux of the novel. But the Earth has turned into a galaxy, an Earth-wide university, and it's a galactic university as well. And it has to do with one traveler who comes back. He was searching for dragons in another system, but he was waylaid and moved to a different planet. But he comes back and finds out that he had returned 3 weeks before and has been murdered, or at least died in an accident, they think. And other characters in here, there's a ghost, as you can see there in a robe. He does not know who he's the ghost of, and he's a coward. There is a Neanderthal who has been plucked out of time and brought to the future, and he's working on his PhD. And there's a lady who has a synthetic mechanical saber-toothed tiger who she calls Sylvester. And she all the time refers to him, oh, he's just a little putty cat. Yeah. So there's a lot of humor in it. The goblins, goblins, gnomes, fairies, and whatnot, banshees, have all come out of hiding and are now the most of the last remaining members of their species are living on a reservation near the university. And there's, as I say, time travel, and Shakespeare shows up as well. So a fabulous, fabulous story. That was written in 1970, or published, I should say, 1968. And Choice of Gods was published, this was 1973, I think. Yes, 1973. And for June on the Range, I read a couple things. I'll start out with the first one here, and I've done a video on this. Ride the Wind. It's a story of Cynthia Ann Parker, who, and the last days of the Comanche. She was kidnapped, and her family, or most of her family, were slaughtered in 1836 in Texas, and she was taken by the Comanche and then sort of adopted into them, and along with her brother. And it's a fictional story about her and the Comanche. I've done a video of this. I've been long interested in her story, if we can ever get to her story. The other one was a Zane Grey story that I read, The Last Trail. This was published in 1909. The Ride the Wind was published in 1980, early 80s. Let's see here, 1982. And The Last Trail is sort of frontier days, 1780s in Ohio, in the Ohio Valley. The cover is incorrect. There are bordersmen or frontiersmen, but they did not ride horses. They did not wear cowboy hats or cowboy boots. They wore moccasins and longer coats. And they mostly are on foot. And it's about a woman and her father who have come to Fort Henry, and sort of her relationship with one of the bordersmen. I've done a video on this as well. It's an interesting story, but yeah, not one of Zane Grey's best, I would say. And I read three other science, more than three, but I read three science fiction books with Scott Danielson, and we decided to read sort of historical type related stuff. The first one was Lest Darkness Fall, and it's a time travel story where a historian winds up in sort of 500 AD Rome, and him trying to stop the sort of the Dark Ages happening, and things that he does, inventions that he makes, and so forth. It's a fun book. I can't think too deeply about it because the mechanism of time travel is not explained, and it just happens. And another one, it's in part of this Library of America, American Science Fiction 1960s. It's edited by Gary K. Wolfe. This has 4 books in here: The High Crusade, Way Station, Flowers for Algernon, and Call Me Conrad, This Immortal, by Roger Zelazny. The one that we read was High Crusade. It's a fabulous, fun book. Again, you can't take it too serious, but a spaceship of aliens land in a small English village in 14 something. They're just about to go off, or a contingent of them are about to go off to the war in France, but they wind up defeating the aliens. They commandeer the spaceship. They have one alien to fly them. They were meant to go to France, but they're taken to the aliens, one of the aliens' planets, and they wind up with bow and arrow and horses, in a sense, creating a galactic empire. It's a fun story. And then the last one, sort of time travel slash alternate history, is Bring the Jubilee by Ward Moore. Alternate history where it begins, or most of the story is that the South had won the war, the Civil War, and America in the 20s is not quite like it used to be, or what as we know it in our reality. So it follows the main character, who eventually goes back in time. So it was a good book. These were three rereads for me. I didn't enjoy this as much as I remember enjoying it when I first read it, but it was still enjoyable read. Um, Another sort of bigger one here that I read with one of my subscribers, Ariane, is Lost Illusions by Honor de Balzac. This is like a third time read. This is a newer translation by Raymond and Mackenzie, or published in 2020, and it's one of Balzac's longer novels of the Comedy Humaine. It's almost 600 pages in this format, but it's quite dense prose. He has, at times, he likes long paragraphs, and there's 3-4 page paragraphs, so you can see 1 page plus their paragraph. And it's set in the 1820s. A young provincial poet is taken to Paris, to the big city, and it's him struggling with fame, short fortune, women and song in a sense, and it's very detailed in rich. It's very rich and detailed in the surroundings, journalism of the time, publishing, how authors worked, as well as even descriptions of furniture and and um, and sort of fashion are well depicted in here, like very detailed, very enjoyable, slow moving, but very meaty, and lots of parallels to today, actually, even though it's 200 years in the past. And there's a sequel which we will be probably reading in October, called there's various names for it. Lost Souls is the title of the new translation. It's been previously called Harlot High and Low, and I think another name or two. Now, this month also was Dune in June. So myself, Aaron Hook, Debs at Rayner Reads, and Randy at The Literate Texan, and Steve Donahue did Dune in June, Frank Herbert's masterpiece from 1965. And as you can see, this is even getting worse as the laminate is just peeling off there. I dislike these books, but yeah, it's a I've read this many times, so I've thoroughly enjoyed it. And there are 4 lives that we did, and we discussed the book for the first 3, and then we discussed the adaptations and gave our opinions on these. So we did this this month, and also I had read, as part of that, is The Road to Dune. This is a book that was put together by Brian Herbert and Kevin J. Anderson, with a introduction by Bill Ransom. And it's got tidbits on the writing of Dune, but also to a previous sort of short novel that he took ideas from, that Frank Herbert did of his own. Like, he had an outline of it, and Brian Herbert and Kevin J. Anderson turned it into a novel. called Spice Planet. So there's a lot of comparisons there. So there's a lot of interesting things together, as well as there's letters from his agent and other editors on the publishing of the book, and also chapters and scenes that never wound up in the final story. So there's interesting things there as well. I haven't finished the book in full because, it first has for Dune Messiah, it does the same thing with missing bits and pieces that were not in the published Dune Messiah. But also it ends with some short stories that Brian Herbert and Kevin J. Anderson has written in the Dune universe. So I haven't read those. I will get to those sometime, but I didn't want to read those now. But I read the Dune Messiah sections because I did wind up reading Dune Messiah, and this is the new Golan's hardcover, which is kind of nice. It took me a while to get used to the first one, but as you can see, it's got quite nice end papers as well. So yeah, so that is my wrap up for June. I read everything that I set out to read because I didn't give myself too much to do, and I was behind with a lot, but or at least where I could have read, because I was basically probably a week and a half behind on things. But even so, I was able to add 2 other books. Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah, 2 other books. These 2. But I also read the last Western short stories by Clifford Simak for June on the Range, and I did a video on those as well. So yeah, so that was a good month, and this month I won't be reading as many books. It's Rocket Summer, and it's also Rogue July, where we read Hugh Walpole's, any Hugh Walpole, but I am part of the group that will be reading Rogue Harry's, or the Harry's Chronicle, or at least as much as possible. I am nearing the end of the first book, and they're quite massive. There's about 700 plus pages per book, and there's 4 to the main chronicles, and there's 2 prequels. If I'm lucky, I'll get done the 4 main books, but not the prequels. And also 2, as I say, there is Rocket Summer, but I've turned that into Simak Summer, and I will be reading all Simak, and there's more to come on that. Thank you, BookTube.